Welcome to Unload the Week. I'm John G. and I'm here with Michael Poehner and Jonathan Smith.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hey.
So if you want to explain to people, I guess I already said who you are, but like what you do, not necessarily for a living, but your special ability, your superpower.
Why I'm here?
Yeah, why you're here.
Why he's here, but I'm just like, that's crazy though, just to be like, who are you?
What
and especially with, how dare you?
How dare I?
But even with me knowing Jonathan, like just asking somebody of our friends group, like, who are you?
Yeah, like what
you're going to have to go like this for a second. Well, I wear many hats.
No,
many times of
the reason why you're here. Let's say that.
Well, the reason I'm here is to talk about the supernatural. I am a gifted reader. I read tarot and astrology and a few other things, just kind of dabble in some other things, talking to spirits of that nature. So I have some insight into religion and spirituality.
Nice. All right, well, let's get involved, people. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. So, Jonathan, so you're a medium? You describe yourself, or how would you describe what your talent is?
No, I'm a reader. I like to set people on their path. Medium is someone that speaks like pretty candidly to the dead or to spirits, and every once in a while I can get something along that line, but that is not my forte. Although I know people that do.
So, as far as like reading, you were taking some info from me, and that's going to kind of give you, like, let's say my specific sign, like my moon, how it was, and all that stuff like that. Does
Correct.
That all in?
Yeah, when you look at an astrology chart, you're looking at where all the planets and the stars were at the moment of your birth, and it's just like. When you take a deep breath, your first breath that you took into the world, you pulled all of that energy into you. So the only thing I can kind of bring it close to is the difference between a child being born in an open field surrounded by green fields and flowers and fresh air versus one being born next to like a sewage pit. Where the first breath is going to have a big impact on you in some way. So it's the same idea, astrologically speaking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like that. Like when Violet was born, since she was born C-section, my wife goes to this chiropractor she believes in energies and crystals and things like that. And she was like, first off, you're not having a natural birth. She's going to be C-section. Like she told her that the first time she went and saw her. And so she told her, she said, make sure that when she's born, you rub down her head and body, because there's a whole energy that goes into passing through the birth canal and coming out head first, and
kind of experiencing it in a natural way.
Like Carrie was like, you get Violet and you start rubbing her immediately. It's like as soon as they brought Violet in, I just ripped my shirt off for the skin to skin contact. So like, give him my baby.
right here.
Just place her on my chest, and I remember I'm just rubbing her, and you know how I am about, like, I am open to the idea of a spiritual realm, but yes. I have a lot of trouble with it. Violet has opened my mind up a lot more to those things, but I remember I'm rubbing her down and talking to her and speaking all these things into existence that I want for her and how great I think she's going to be. And I remember I just started going like, I just started crying. I'm like, this is my baby. Like,
I'll kill for you.
So I don't know. I don't remember exactly how I came into that, but like, when did you first realize that you were a gifted reader? Like,
That's a good question.
When did you first, I guess, decide, like, I can do this, I'm going to do this?
Well, it's very difficult because I grew up in a very religious household. So when you grow up that way, but you know that you have an ability that other people can't see and you don't even have a handle on, you have to be careful because is it a gift of the Holy Spirit or is it Satan?
Right.
Because that's very touchy in a very religious household.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were pretty religious in our household.
Speaking on that, you were what I refer to as a Bible thumper.
Yes, very much so.
Right? And so do you remember your turning point?
I remember when I'd always been interested, but I am an avid Wizard of Oz collector, and I think that collecting has no bounds. I also collect Star Wars and Buffy the Vampire Slayer memorabilia, but
it's a good spread.
He's an all-around cool guy. Like, he's pretty well rounded.
Got all the bases covered there.
There was a tarot set that came out called the Tarot of Oz, and it was built around L. Frank Baum's books. Not so much the movie, but the books. And if you're familiar with the tarot, there are two arcanas. There's the major arcana, which are the first 21 cards, and they have to do with like big major things that happen in your life. And then there are 4 suits, much like a traditional card deck of the ace, the spade, the diamond, and the heart. So, although in this case, we usually call them pentacles, wands, swords, and cups. And they run an ace through the 10 of that suit, and then there's a page, a knight, a queen, and a king. And so those all kind of told 4 of the stories in the suits from Oz. And I remember when I bought it, and I said to God, I'm only buying this because it's Wizard of Oz, and I'm a collector.
Yeah.
But then one day I thought, of course, you go through things in your life that make you question a lot. And so one day I just decided, I'm going to try it. What the hell? So I pulled them out and I kind of did a little pseudo reading for myself. And I thought, I wonder if I could get good at this, like really good. So I ended up getting a Rider-Waite tarot deck, and I found a lady that lives in Fenton. She has had a business there, and she is a medium. She speaks to the dead, but she had on staff an astrologer/tarot reader who has become a great mentor of mine throughout the years. And I took a class with her, and she taught me pretty much how to read and how to interpret some of the things that I was seeing, and so that helped a lot. And that was probably, at this point now, about 15, 16 years ago.
You said interpret, so you're interpreting it like through your view, or is there like a set rule? Like this is, you know what I mean? Like it's structured like this means this, and that's it.
Oh
like,
yeah, definitely. It's all it means. All of it means something specifically to the card. The card means something specific, and relative to if you're doing a reading spread, then wherever I put the card in the spread, each one of those positions represents something. If it's straight up or if it's upside down, that means something. Okay. And then of course the interpretation of it comes in the general spread and how how other cards in that spread influence one another.
Okay, so it's not you thinking it this way. This is almost like degrees.
I have no idea what is going to come up.
Yeah, and you're just reading what it tells you. You're not adding your
own personal beliefs.
Yeah, your personal beliefs into it.
No, not mine, but sometimes you'll get a spirit guide or an angel or something come through and say, hey, this is what this means. And then even when you get kind of stuck up on something, because, sometimes when you do these things, some people get very resistant to it, especially when you tell them something that they don't want to hear. Yeah. So there are other avenues of getting clarification, whether it's meditating on the card or using a pendulum. I have a pendulum that I ask, or runes. There's all sorts of different avenues just to say, hey, can I get clarification? Or you can even just flip another card.
Yeah. I wrote down back to what Michael said about when his daughter was born via C-section or vaginal birth. Does that necessarily is there something in the realm that you work in that says this is not better, but is there a difference?
Of course there is.
Yeah, as far as like their first breath and all that stuff, they're coming out in a different way than natural. You know what I mean? So I didn't know if that had any specifics, like if you had something that told you like a specific, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, I guess.
Are you saying is the breath different because it's a chosen breath as opposed to one that comes naturally?
Maybe.
Because of because doctors are now choosing a birth date as opposed to the body choosing the birth date.
Or is that true? Or is that kind of stuff already predestined?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, Violet,
that the soul
we
has
did
already
have,
decided when it's going to come into this world, and you don't get an option to make that choice for that soul.
I mean, we had a section scheduled, and Violet was like, "No, no, I'm coming 2 weeks before that."
I would say that there is no such thing as surprises. The soul knows when it's going to incarnate.
Well, an interesting thing, I'm sure my wife has told you, Jonathan has done readings for me, Gary, and Jonathan's one of my very best friends, and we go pretty way back. But her chiropractor who told her, she was like, Violet is definitely coming as a C-section. In one of her former lives, she died in the birth canal. So she is coming out that way.
Huh.
Son of a gun. I lost where I was going with that.
Well, we were talking about the difference between a C-section and vaginal birth.
Yeah, I got that.
And breath.
Just how I guess you're saying the soul chooses, and Violet was very, like, we actually tried, she was breached the entire time. Like, there was no way, and breach means your head is up by, like,
it
by, like, Carrie's heart, like, towards that way rather than towards her vagina. Yeah.
That's a good, it's a
so
perfect word.
It's like, even when they tried turning her manually.
That's
in
insane,
Violet would turn and get halfway there, and the doctor would let go for a second, and she'd boing
right back
up. Like, nope, that's not how I'm coming.
Yeah.
And her chiropractor told her, she was like, she is not coming that way. She has decided how she's coming into this world, and that's exactly how she's coming, and that's exactly how she came. Like, we tried. Carrie tried at-home remedies. Like, we bought a medicine ball for her to bounce around on and spin and try to do all these things to move Violet. And she's like, nah, I didn't like how I died before in a previous life. So,
yeah. So is there a way, does it tell you, like, to read it this way for, maybe it's too specific, but, like, for, you read this way for a natural birth or you read this way for a C-section, it doesn't matter. It's just the timing of which you came into this world.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay. I wanted to get back to, like, I guess religion, or you were very religious growing up. Maybe still are. I don't know.
Nope.
But, like, how much turmoil did that cause you? Like, you know, wanting to do this, but then also this God-fearing part of you is very scared to delve into that. Like, how bad was
I remember when I went to my first class, I looked up in the air and I went, rebellion. And I got in the car. I thought, well, either I'm going to pay for that one day very dearly, or I'm starting on a new adventure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Which could be the right one. You don't even know.
Exactly.
But, like, do you remember the store Blue Moon in
Yes,
Tennessee?
of course.
So before I started believing in any, like, I lost my faith when I was 17, but I still have got it rattling around. Like how Kyle Kinane says, like, you know that marble in a spray paint can? He's like, that's my religion up there. That's how I am.
Every once in
And
a while
I remember
it hits the
walking
side.
into Blue Moon and just getting this feeling in my chest, like, I shouldn't be in here.
Yeah.
But
Well, I can tell you why.
I would like to know why.
Yeah, I can tell you why. I had the same feeling. I had to leave there once. They didn't smudge. And you know what smudging is. It's when you go through that home with sage. And so you're dealing in a place that deals with a lot of energy. So people are coming in. We're made up of energy. We have energy.
We're losing him.
We have energy all around us. And I think especially for those of us that are spiritual and we understand these things, it's our responsibility to smudge. They didn't really smudge. And so they had a lot of negative energy that was in that building.
How can you open a store like that and not smudge?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I had to leave once in a very fast hurry. I walked in and I felt, so for lack of better terminology, I would call it like a demonic presence. And so what that means, when the only way I can describe anything like this is when you're in the presence of angels, it's very lighthearted and you feel uplifted. you know, and you can feel that way when you go to church, synagogue, your backyard out in nature. I mean, there's so many places. But demonic energy, the only way I can really describe it is if you've ever swam to the bottom of a 8-foot pool and you feel all that pressure that's pushing in on your head and stuff, you know. So you feel that, though, it kicks in, and that's what happened to me when I went in there once, just talking about this store that's no longer in existence. But I went out really fast, and I had to really quickly clear out my energy, and I'm like, what the heck happened? So I went in there maybe a couple of days later, and I was talking to some of the people that worked behind the counter, and she said, oh my gosh, yeah, 2 days ago, I remember when you popped in, this lady came in, and she had lost her dad, and she was going through a divorce. So all these terrible things were happening to her. And she was standing right about where I had walked in. And before I got there, and she was just like letting it all out. Like just being wild about it, like just crying and screaming. And so all this energy was just going everywhere that was off of her. And of course, when you open yourself up like that, those types of forces mess with you. So,
smudging do you recommend that be done by somebody that knows what they're doing, or just somebody that wants to buy something on Amazon as far as like some sage and a little ashtray to do it yourself, and you read instructions?
Yeah.
So it's okay to do it yourself. Absolutely. Okay. Mm-hmm. So my wife smudged the house.
Good.
And, she was very particular about that. She collects, geodes and crystals and certain rocks and stuff like that.
I've got
she charges them in the windowsill when there's a full moon and all that stuff.
I just recently learned about moon water. Have you ever heard of moon water?
No.
It's like where you put water in. I'm a part of this coffee group on Facebook, and somebody was like,
"Here we go."
Someone's like, "Have you ever made coffee with moon water? And if so, what was your experience?" And I'm like, well, hold on a second, because they just discovered actual water on the moon. Who has access to it? And if it's someone in this group, we're about to be friends.
We're making coffee with it.
Exactly. That wouldn't be a waste to me.
No, not at all.
Making
it's water.
coffee out of moon water. Yeah.
If anything,
but no, it's
more water.
It's like you put these like mason jars or anything outside during a full moon or in the windowsill and around other crystals and stuff too, and you put your intentions like obviously not, you don't write it down, but for lack of a better term, you spill from your mind your intentions into the vessels of water, and then it gets charged by the full moon, and you drink it, you bathe in it, you do anything you do with water in it. And I'm like, I don't have crystals, but I'm thinking about doing it. Like, just next time there's a full moon, just put some water out and make some coffee out of it and see what the hell happens. Yeah. Like this year for my birthday, I was like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to start out. I'm going to
charge some water.
I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym and see if that changes anything. Like I was like, I'm going to blast my legs to shit. And so far, it has not made one bit of difference. Like, granted,
maybe it's part of like a peace of mind thing, kind of.
It could be, because the night before I drank a lot. I drank like half of that bottle of scotch, and my wife and I got home at like 1 a.m, and I'm like, well, I've got to get my daughter at 10. So
not bad.
I've got to wake up early enough to be able to go to the gym and get a quality workout in. And I went and I did it. And I was like, all right.
It was the moon water.
I didn't have moon water back then.
There's a really good documentary that you should watch then. It's called What the Bleep Do We Know? It's either you can read it, there's a book, or you can watch it. And it actually has a study in what we call metaphysics. And there's this really cool experiment that they do with water, where they have somebody that's really angry and frustrated, and they're in the room with the water, and they're sending all the energy into it. And then someone that's really, really happy, and they're sending all of their energy into it. And it literally changed the compost structure of the water. So those that were angry and throwing it out, on a molecular level, you could see that the water would start to harden. And so you have to remember that when our bodies are made up of 90% water. So, of course, the moon would have, those types of effects. And then our emotions, same thing. If your emotions can affect a glass of water, what does it do to your body?
Yeah.
And that's why that's important.
Tenfold, because you're in your own head spewing this stuff. You're not saying it out loud.
Well, I mean, you did a study like that with plants too, where they like yelled at plants
or playing
and stuff,
good music or
played
something
good
like
music
that.
for it, and the plants that had the pleasantries thrived, and the other ones were like, I don't want to be alive.
See, I remember watching something like that on Mythbusters, so it has to be true. But just what you expel, your breath helps the plants like absorb that carbon dioxide, because that's what they breathe in. So if you go in there and you're talking to your plants, it's good to talk to your plants, but yeah, you're also expelling this gas that they were like, yes, please, I want more. But yeah, that's interesting as far as changing the molecular.
Yeah, I have to check that documentary out. What did you watch that on?
A friend of mine showed it to me. He had the film.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you can find it on something.
Bootleg on DVD.
Maybe,
it's okay.
yeah. I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
Netflix not sponsored.
Yeah,
but it talks about all this sort of stuff with your
10
mind.
minutes
at
a time.
So there wasn't a moment that you were like, it wasn't like a thing that came to you. You just kind of not stumbled upon it, but were interested in it enough to pursue it.
Yeah, do you remember Miss Cleo on TV with dancing on questions? And I was like, I always thought,
about
this is
the
interesting. Day. And then it finally, I saw Sylvia Brown on Montel, and she was chewing her long fingernails and talking like this. But she was saying, "Oh, honey," they'd say, "Our son, he's been missing for over a year. Nobody knows where he is. Oh, he died, but he's in water. He's underwater." But don't worry about it. He's on the other side. He'll be fine. And I mean, all this time ago, I'm watching it going, wow, that's really neat. Like, somebody can see that kind of thing. Of course, I followed Sylvia Brown for a while and then kind of regretted it later in life. But it kind of, she had her own thing, her own church, her own, everything that she believed.
Too big for her britches.
Yeah.
Not to change the subject too much, I guess we're going to stay on the subject of you and your abilities or what have you.
His gift.
Yeah, your gift.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
When these moments happen, when you said like, oh, there's like an angel presence or demonic presence, are you like more tuned into that stuff?
Yep.
So it's like almost, I don't want to make fun of you or anything, but like a child is, they don't have like a outlook or an agenda or anything like that. So it's just more raw, natural feeling.
Yes, until we tell them otherwise.
Yeah.
We tell them that the things that they see are imaginary, they're imaginary friends, or they're just seeing things, or they need to just, close their eyes, close their ears.
Yeah.
And then we take that away from them. And then as we get older, if you want to, you open yourself back up again to try to get that back.
That's what I was going to ask. If you just have not a more open mind than an average person, but you're very open to thoughts and ideas. And
well, there's this beautiful thing that Yoda says in The Empire Strikes Back. You must unlearn what you have learned. So you have to unlearn the things that you were taught by your parents, that you were taught by society. And that's really the way to any spiritual path. I mean, whether you follow Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, it doesn't matter. I mean, or your own philosophy. You have to be able to look at the world and say, these things, they're not real. They're all illusions. They're social constructs that were created to make me, I don't know, a better citizen, maybe a better American.
Pretty
Absolutely.
much control boundaries.
Yes. Because the trick is, all of us are psychic, and all of us can tap into that ability.
Well,
see, that's very interesting because my sister, Hannah, she's oh yeah, here you go. I want to hand that to him. A little beer opener.
Tonight we're drinking KBS espresso.
Not sponsored still.
And Jonathan's enjoying a Menage a Trois red blend. But back to your sister.
When somebody says that, I don't know, I don't want to say she's psychic or anything like that, but some stuff she says kind of hits a nerve or a chord or just rings a little bit louder in your head. And I feel that that's in our family kind of, where we're talking to somebody and we'll say like a key word or a key sentence or phrase that makes them drop their guard like way low. Is that something that you work on or you notice in your field, I guess, as far as like I don't know, not dropping their guard to be more accepting, but it seems like you could say some words and then they'll be like, oh, whoa. And it's very powerful to them. And then they're just way more.
Well, if I
ready
make
to
a
take
prediction
in.
that comes true, that certainly.
Yeah.
Or is it also you might be more susceptible to believing it because you are in that moment? Now, I always play devil's advocate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't do it on purpose. It just comes about. But even you just saying that, like, are you able to break people's walls down? Well, for instance, when Jonathan does a reading for me, I try to be as open as possible, making me more susceptible to believing everything he's telling me. Now, my last reading, unfortunately, it was awesome that it was on my birthday. My birthday's the day after Halloween. It was a full moon. We had a fire going outside. It was awesome. I let a bunch of people go before me. Half a bottle of scotch in. I'm like, all right, secure this reading. Like, I do remember some of it. I just wish I would have recorded it or remembered more of it, because going back, I've said this probably half a dozen times on this show. My daughter has really more opened up my mind, and like my mind's eye, my spiritual eye. Like, he's the one that my wife called the night that Carrie and I both saw white orbs.
Yeah.
On Violet's monitor. Like, and it's like that was most likely Uncle Tom and Grandma, like, coming to say hey, because Uncle Tom loved babies and Grandma's so proud of you. Like, and it made Carrie feel that much better. And I remember that night though, I was like, this is creepy. Like, I need to go upstairs. And I am that type of person to go like, I'm seeing this on this monitor. I'm going in that room right now. Like, I would totally. You've got a chair in your basement that I jokingly said, I'm going to go move that chair.
Oh, you told me about this.
And there's some stuff with this chair. And he's like, don't touch that chair. I'm like, I'm going to move it. It's fine. But just joking around, I would never disrespect your beliefs or even your home. It's like, yeah, I'm going to move it. But then at the same time, I know if I were to move that in my head, I'd be like, what the hell did I just do? Why did I do that?
Maybe I did something. What's going to happen?
But and even with that stuff rattling in the back of my head, when I was younger, I used to see a lot of things that I just wrote off to my imagination. Or my dad would make me even more scared when I'd tell him about it. Like, he'd just frighten me even more. And I'm like, well, never talking to you about this shit again.
Yeah.
And so, like, I shut myself off. And it's like, even now, with knowing, like, talking with you and knowing when I was younger, I was more, just for my terminology, I was more susceptible to these things and could see into these things. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that, because I saw way too many things that scared me. But I grew up in a tumultuous home. Like, I did not grow up I didn't have a positive upbringing. And I didn't even know that until later on in life, because I remember, like, one of my friends telling me something about my home life, and I was like, I didn't realize that until you just told me, and now I'm sad.
Like when I was saying, I went to my friend's house and they had dinner around the table and they all watched a movie together, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like,
you guys in a cult?
Two Waltons.
You guys in a cult?
Good night, John boy.
Like, I didn't drink any of that juice. But yeah, what were you? How'd we get there? Oh, as far as I can't remember.
You were talking about children and seeing things.
Yeah. So you're keeping a more open mind.
Mm-hmm. Brick by brick.
Yeah.
You take the wall down.
That's you were saying, that's what it was. Unlearning like what you've learned. Mm-hmm. And that's very hard.
Absolutely.
For a lot of people.
That's how the Buddha gained enlightenment. I mean, he had to unlearn he was a prince, right? He was born into wealth. And it was only by going out and seeing the suffering of the world and thinking, I have to change my life. I have to change what I'm thinking. How can I be a servant? And then when I'm a servant, how can I find, well, in his case, he was looking for enlightenment. What is enlightenment? And for him, it was by eradicating suffering. And suffering in the human condition is want. It's us wanting things. Our constant search for wanting is what makes us suffer. And I mean, really, any spiritual path would say that. I mean, Jesus told his apostles, he told them to take their nets. You know, they were casting them out to sea. That was how they made their living. They were fishermen. And he said, throw those out into the ocean. Come with me because you're going to become fishers of men. And he was itinerant. Oh. He went from village to village and preached. I mean, he had no belongings either. That's kind of when you think of this great spiritual teacher, that's usually one of the biggest things that you think about.
As far as them having
humility and not really owning anything, not having any possessions,
but still yet having this power of changing people's lives with just words. And
but always persecuted, because the wealthy people, the rich people, those in power, they don't want all of us to know this about ourselves, that we are powerful, that we are divine. The one thing that I always took from the Bible that I thought was interesting was when the snake told Eve, that if she ate from the apple, she would be like God, that she would come to know the difference between good and evil. And so it's been told to us through religion that we are unworthy, that we are born dirty and unclean and sinful. And in the case of Christianity, the only way to even approach God the Father is to be cleansed through the blood of Jesus, acknowledge his sacrifice, and then say, well, now I'm worthy to go to the person that created me in the first place in the circumstances in which I was born and didn't even ask to be. But here I am, this unclean thing that's finally clean through Jesus. Whereas spirituality says, no, actually, we are all God. God is living within us, regardless of whether or not we choose to accept it or even believe it. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, what the soul is if God was a giant ocean and you took a turkey baster and you sucked up some of the water out of the ocean and you made individual droplets. Each one of those droplets is one of us. And all of us we're experiencing life. Everything that we do, from a broken ankle to getting married to dying, and everything in between. And all it is it's experience that goes back into that spiritual body, into what we would call God or the universe. And there's an infinite number of experiences, so that's why this whole thing that we have going on can go on for a very long time. It's not necessarily finite. Some people believe that it is, that the end is coming soon, that we're in it now. But
they've been believing that since like the 1400s, though. It's always been end times.
Always. It's always been soon. That's the thing that's always got me. For the last 2,000 years, it's soon.
Very soon. But the way they explain it is, well, a minute in heaven is an eternity on earth. Like they can just always explain it that way. And it just, when you were talking about Jesus not having possessions and me growing up I was in a split home. My mother was raised Lutheran. My dad was non-denominational. Like speaking in tongues.
That was how I was raised.
We get to make our own rules, and our rules are what goes. Those Christians nowadays speak that, well, no, Jesus was a Lord. He had wealth. He had homes. Yes,
that is Joel Osteen's
riding a
prosperity
donkey,
gospel.
Riding a donkey was like riding in a Cadillac back then. Like people make fun of it. Oh, he rode into town on a donkey, Jesus, on Palm Sunday. No, that was the best thing. That was the best animal you could purchase then. And they got me for a moment too, back when I believed. And I was like, yeah, like the pastor of this church, he should, like, granted, if you have a job and you do it well, and if you should be able to provide for yourself from that job. And these con artist Christians who are able to convince people, like, hey, I'm living the way that you should be living too, but you need to pay me for teaching you how to live the way I'm living. Like,
it's completely the opposite way.
Well, and then I remember at this one church that I went to when I was in high school, they opened up an actual Starbucks in the church. And I just remember that story.
That's when you would turn around and run away.
About Jesus going into, not the marketplace, when he flipped over tables and stuff. Like you've turned
he went to the temple and the tax collectors were in front of the temple.
And he's like, you've turned this into a market and blah, blah, and like flip tables. And I remember seeing an actual franchise Starbucks inside of this church.
That's crazy.
And then seeing the pastor talk about it and like basically how you and I, anytime we bring up a brand name and we say not sponsored, he's like, Starbucks right over there, sponsored. Like essentially
don't
that.
forget to grab your Frappuccino.
This man
on the way
also,
out.
by the way, so as a religious leader, you're not allowed to tell people, like you are legally not allowed to tell people how to vote. And he brought that up one night and said, as your pastor, I'm not allowed to tell you how to vote. And this is his words verbatim. I'm no longer your pastor. Vote for Bush. Okay, I'm your pastor now.
And they were like, you got it.
Well, no, I didn't. But those
I'm saying that the followers
right.
were probably like,
well, no, and then
the sheep, as they call themselves.
Then another night,
the flock.
Wednesday night, I was at a Wednesday night service, and I had already had a bunch of reservations about this. I was questioning my faith, and Wednesday night at this church was like, if you were a part of the church, this is a night you come. Like, this is family night. And he was on the stage. I don't know what you call that in church, but
podium.
He was at the podium on the stage.
Yeah.
And he instructed the whole congregation. He said, hey, just start laughing. And some people did, some people didn't. And he was like, I'm your pastor. If I tell you to do something, you need to do it. Start laughing. And everybody, and I remember I was sitting in the front row. I don't know why I was in the front row. Looking around, looking at all these people just laughing. And I'm like, this is some cult shit.
Yeah.
I got up and I left. I was like, no.
It's like some absolute
I don't
corruption.
care. I don't care what you tell me to do. You're supposed to be up here like teaching me the word of God. You're not supposed to be telling me if you tell me to do something, I need to be doing it. Like I was
That's
super
weird,
uncomfortable with that. I left the church soon after that because I had actually
was this when you were like around 17 at that time?
Yeah,
okay.
17, 18.
When you pretty much didn't give up on it, but just were like, I'm done with this part.
I didn't give up on it. I was laying in bed one morning before, so I had hockey practice at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times I'd wake up at 5 and just dread it. And one morning I woke up and it was the very first time I thought for myself about religion, because growing up, it's just, this is God and this is how it is. And this is what we believe. And this is what you believe.
You were indoctrinated into all this anyway.
But I also remember like, as a child thinking like, well, what if I was born in India? Would I know that Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit are the one true God?
Well, more than likely then you'd be a Hindu and you'd be on the pathway to hell according to Christianity.
Exactly. But so I remember laying in bed and I was like, does God exist? Does God actually exist? And I got that feeling in my chest that boom.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I don't actually know. For the first time in my life, I do not actually believe one way or the other. And I never went back.
Yeah. Just you got to trust in blind faith.
Well, yeah, and that's what they say, and I understand. Like, I always assumed as I got older, you know, and death is approaching, that I would be scared enough to go and back and believe. And but then I'm like, no, I won't, because I know I'll be bullshitting because I want that hope. And even
it's like a false,
and then
security blanket, so that we have something to look forward to.
Even
would you rather err on the side of caution and do so, and him not be there when you're dead?
No, because this is the thing about that though. So okay, err on the side of caution and pretend to believe in God. So then when you actually die and meet up with God,
like,
he goes, "I know you were kidding. Get the fuck away from me." or when I die and there's still that tiny bit of brain activity going on, that, you know how a dream will be like 2 minutes, but it's been like 8 hours in the dream. So that stuff going on in my brain, if it's like that whole same scenario though, like I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, because it's like, okay, I'm going to pretend to believe in you, God. And then God is like if it is like how Christians believe your final judgment, it's like, I knew you were bullshitting though. So peace.
Yeah.
But then in my head, it's still going to be the same thing. Like, I pretended to believe, hey, imaginary God, I knew it was bullshit. Welcome to your hell that's going to last for eternity. Mm-hmm. It's really only 3 minutes. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But it's going to be forever.
Like, or what if you're met by Shiva or Brahma instead and you're like, oh, whoops.
Or a giant frog.
I wondered that.
Shit.
I wondered that when I was a kid.
This is what I get for being born in the United States.
Right.
Where
like, and that's the thing too. Like if there is one powerful, all knowing, all powerful, all everything loving God, then are they really going to judge you on if you believed in that particular deity?
Yeah.
Or are they going to judge you? Are they going to actually even judge you at all? They're going to be like, hey, I created you. You did good.
Yeah.
Or you did well. Or, hey, you were kind of shitty. How about we try again?
I think it's all about how you treat your brothers and sisters, of your people in your life. I think that's like, it's almost like the 10 Commandments. You know what I mean? It's just a rule book. Like,
well,
just
from
don't
a Christian perspective, your righteousness is as filthy rags.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what good works you do.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe in that. I think it's do something.
Yeah, he's saying somebody. What he believes.
Yeah, I'm saying if you do something.
That's why he, like, anytime a woman is buying Plan B,
I'll buy it for her.
He buys it for her.
Is that Plan B? I'll put that on my tab, bartender. Yeah. Put this in your drink real quick. No, but yeah, I mean, it's like
scrambled eggs.
The golden rule, like that to me, when they taught us that in school, even, or catechism class or whatnot. That
every religion has the golden rule.
And that's it. Like, treat others the way you want to be treated.
Correct.
Sometimes you're an asshole to yourself. You overindulge. You smoke too much that night. You drink too much that night. And that's just clouding, not judgment, but it's clouding who you are. It's kind of like masking some stuff or whatever. But I always thought that, like, just if you treat somebody well, that should feel good to you. Like, it shouldn't feel bad.
Well, it sends an energy out to the universe. And when you send, so the strongest energy in the universe is love. And you can send that to anybody. You send it to your wife and your kids every day. You send it to your parents. You send it to your friends and people. And they can feel it. I mean, and you can send love to anybody. If you wanted to, you could send love to the President of the United States. Because, I mean, love doesn't know any bounds. So you can send that anywhere. What doesn't go anywhere, though, is fear and hatred. That stays with you. It doesn't go anywhere. You can't send hatred to somebody. You can't send love it because of the frequency. Okay? So,
but you can send it to water?
At a higher level. No, you're not sending it to the water. It's picking up the environment around you. You're not sending it into the water.
Okay.
No. No. It affects the energy in the room around you.
Like when you come into a room and somebody just had a fight and it's that weird stink that's in there.
Yeah.
You could feel it.
Yes. Because we are beings made up of energy. We send it out. But the strong, what more pure, more loving the energy is, the higher the vibration and the further you can send it out. But if you're just an angry, hateful, vengeful person, that energy doesn't go anywhere besides you. It stays in your energy field or in your home. You know, it stays in your immediate vicinity. It only affects the things that you have, which is why it's interesting. You know, you could, when you're married, say you go to, you know, you get into a fight, you know, with your wife over something really dumb, and you're really mad about it. Maybe she, I don't know, left toilet paper all over the toilet seat.
She pissed on the toilet seat again.
and you're like, oh man, I can't stand that, you know, and she's laying down and she falls asleep and she's just snoring, you know, sweetly, and you're just sitting there going, oh man, she's just so irresponsible. It makes me so mad. And, you know, 8 hours go by and you got maybe 2 hours of sleep, but she got a full 8 hours. You know, it doesn't matter how much anger you had. It stayed with you. It kept you awake.
Yeah.
That's so true.
So is energy kind of like, so you're saying, okay, so it stayed with you, but it's still in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So energy is like those people who, by the way, anybody listening to this, if you put on cologne, people should not smell you from 10 feet away, and they should not smell you when you leave. So is energy kind of like people who wear too much cologne?
Yeah,
like,
it can be.
Because how it just resonates.
I think if you let it, I mean, not to like tell, like, I don't know. Anyways, my thing on that, I don't want to be like, oh, this is what it is, but it's up to you to take it how you want to take it. Like that's the only choice you have, that no one, or not choice, but the only thing that not one person can take away from you is how you choose to react to something. That'll never be taken away from you.
I don't fully agree with that, because jump scares tell me otherwise. But not only just jump scares,
like that skeleton behind you,
but like how you were saying, like if you walk into a room, and people were fighting,
but
just
that's
feel
a reaction.
That
that's like the fight or flight thing. That's like wired into your little lizard portion of your brain. That's
your chakras.
Yeah, that's like a thing.
But that's a reaction.
Yeah, but
that's
how I'm saying choice, how you choose to do something or how you choose to react,
how you choose
to
to
something.
move forward from it.
Whatever it is. You could be in prison for the rest of your life. It's how you choose to take it, what you're going to do with the remaining portion of whatever time you have left.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
That's what I think. Yeah, I mean, and you were saying about energy. I kind of want to tie this back into like, I guess I'm not tying it back in anything, but when you came into my house, do you automatically start taking in the environment and like kind of building?
If I can interrupt real quick.
No.
I'm going to anyway. That's my energy I'm giving off.
Well, I'm choosing not to.
But a thing that stuck with me, that the first time Jonathan ever gave me a reading, which I think it was about 6 years ago, maybe longer than that. He was talking about how if he goes into a hospital to visit like hospitals have a lot of negative energy in them. But he said if I go into, he just gave the hospital as an example. He talks about a lot of places he walks into at first, and I'm curious if you did this tonight, how he kind of imagines like a disco ball around him of mirrors bouncing off energy any energy that's coming towards him. Do you still do that? And did you do that tonight?
I do that. It's a great visual for anybody to do.
Yeah.
It keeps negative energy away from you. It says, nope, you don't get to come in here. This is my energy field. So if you just picture yourself in a disco ball with the mirrors shoot, kind of like a vampire looking in where, it can't see its own reflection. So you just say, hey, nope, nothing's coming in here. So you keep yourself, encapsulated, and you'll be fine.
I do that constantly, except I imagine it as a whole bodysuit.
Absolutely, you can do that. And look at all that is for me is a visualization that works for me.
Yeah.
What works for you be completely different.
So when you came in here tonight, did you visualize that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always have to.
So you're doing that like precautionary, where you're not letting the environment skew the way you're thinking or anything like that. You're kind of
I try not to.
You're just as neutral as possible, and letting everything just bounce off.
Yeah, because I also want to be a person. I can't be. I don't want to be on at all times.
But when you first come into a place, do you're like, oh, this is bad, or this is all right?
It depends on what am I there to do. Am I there to do that? Some people have hired me to come into their homes and smudge and find negative energy or positive energy in their homes, and I do that. I did a house more recently that there was a man in the living room, kind of like it's like a hallway, and then from the living room led to the bathroom and the two other bedrooms. And I had to tell her there's a man here, but he's not bad. And I described what he looked like, and she said, "Oh my God, that's my uncle. He passed away here not too long ago." Wow. And I said, so I think that her kid was having a hard time sleeping because he kept seeing somebody. And I said, well, that's all that energy is it's your uncle. So it's not negative, not that particular one. But yeah.
Speaking of negative energies, you would not recommend somebody, for instance, like John and I, to use a Ouija board just for fun. Because
while drinking alcohol?
We did discuss one night doing a wine and Ouija board night.
No.
But I ended up feeling really uneasy about it. I talked with you about it a little bit, and then you told me about a story where your cousins used a Ouija board, and you actually had to...
Well,
I don't know if
he
this
didn't
is the
use a
proper
Ouija
word.
board.
But
I don't even use Ouija boards.
Before we get into that, so did you feel anything when you came here?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it was just kind of like, yeah,
but I wasn't attempting to.
yeah.
Like it's like if I do, then like I said, I would.
It wasn't like Blue Moon.
You'd feel everything
back in '97 or something.
Yeah.
That was before I was like what you could call spiritual, and I just remember going like, "Ooh, I don't like this, and I feel I need to leave."
There's a witch in here somewhere. But you were saying about the Ouija board thing.
Oh yeah, so your cousin didn't use a Ouija board, but they welcomed. They were trying to get in contact with their mother.
So yeah, it wasn't my cousin. It was a friend of mine who had lost his mom. No, it's fine. And he and his cousin were decided to grab a candle, light it, and try to contact the spirit realm and see if they could get a hold of his mom, his dead mother.
Now that's kind of like a 4-year-old who knows how to press the unlock button on a key fob and put it in and start the car.
It's
right?
kind of honest though.
It's
not a malicious thing. It's
no, it's not.
kind of,
it's that. But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it's like
not,
a 4-year-old
you-
going like, I know where this goes and I know how to start it, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't know any.
And when you
know it
don't,
does something.
when you're not in the right frame of mind, you have to think when you lose a parent, it's very traumatic, and especially when you think, I need answers. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of the spirit realm because I've heard of this stuff, or hell, I'm going to try it. And I mean, they did it, but they ended up getting a negative spirit. I don't want to say it wasn't necessarily demonic, and it wasn't a poltergeist, but it was just the only way I can describe it was a trickster energy, and it knew. So he called me in a panic because he told me what he did, and I said, well, that you shouldn't have done that. And he said, well, the flame on the candle is bending down and it's following my cousin around the room. Wherever she goes, the flame turns. And then they started hearing bangs, in their house, and then this smelly,
sulfury smell or something like
so
that.
he was like, I don't know what to do. And
Magic
I said,
shave
I'll
powder.
be over there in a minute. So I
Sponsor.
grabbed my Van Helsing kit and went over there and burned some sage and took some crystals. And actually, I didn't end up doing it. I told them they had to do it. So I just lit it for them, told them what I needed them to do, and they went throughout the whole house and they burned the sage and got rid of it.
You didn't want to get anything to attach to you or anything like that.
No, I wasn't worried about that. I can handle that. It was just mostly they're the ones that summoned it,
Right.
so I wanted them to get rid of it.
Well, you decided to get on a bike without training wheels, so here you go.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan came to my home, and this is before I was open to any. I was basically like, I'm agnostic, but I'm more atheist than anything. And when we first bought our home, my wife was she was like, Jonathan's going to come and sage our home. He's going to cleanse our home. And like, we had a few people over and we were like, okay, everybody's got to get out. We're going to do something real quick. But even with me not believing, like, and at that time at all, just thinking, okay, this is a little ridiculous and I'm just going to entertain you. I still, and I don't know if this is because of just who I am or theater even, I was like, well, I'm not just going to play along. I'm going to believe these things I'm saying. Because like when we were going through the home,
actively join in.
Yeah. And like when we were going through the home, I was interested and I'm like, what should I be doing? And he's like, just put out positive thoughts, put out things you want in your home. I think I could be misremembering this. But you basically just told me, like, say a prayer.
Yeah. Didn't I also give you some of the sage to burn too?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
No. You held on to the sage the whole time. I buried it.
Oh,
But-
that's right, in the front.
You had the sage the whole time. And you said you found 3 spirits in my home.
Mm-hmm.
None of them malicious. And it did remind me, though, when you were talking about that one that your friend and their cousin summon the trickster. We had one trickster.
Yeah, it was in your wine cellar.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the one that took you the longest
Yep. I had
to get out.
Talk to him for a long time.
And it was very funny, though, because of him burning sage in my home. And then we invited my father-in-law in. And when he walked into the wine cellar, he's like, oh, this is where they kept their weed. And we're like, no, we saged the place. It's not weed, it's sage.
Told me about that. No, this is weed. Whatever you kids call it nowadays.
No, this is weed. No.
So the spirits, I have written down here stone tape theory, where it's a theory. I mean, I guess a theory means that you can reproduce it with, I don't know. Anyways, so the stone.
No, I need you to explain it. What do you mean
like,
you don't know?
Like a theory compared to a
about.
hypothesis. Like a theory means you can do this over and over and have almost the same result or whatever. So it's like provable.
Okay.
Yes.
But they call it the stone tape theory, where it's like energy being stored in wood and metals and rocks, and water is a good, I guess, conductor of this. So as far as like spirits being trapped or spirits that like the record just happens to hit the needle at that spot at that certain moment.
That's two different things.
That's two different things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about that in particular. It's called a psychic imprint.
Okay.
And that's when you have somebody that's worked the same job for, 65 years, and they did the same route every day, or they lived in the same house and they, went, from the upstairs to the downstairs every single day at 4:00. It leaves an imprint on the fabric of reality. And so you're not seeing a ghost. You're seeing what you just said, a record player. You're seeing, that energy play itself out.
So it's not necessarily that spirit. It's what they
not
left.
A spirit at all.
What they left,
correct,
like imprinted on that certain.
I've never heard of that.
Really,
and that's just eerie to me.
Yeah. It's a psychic imprint on the fabric of reality.
So it's like that thing isn't even doing anything. That's just their energy.
Yep,
they're gone.
And you might see them.
That's crazy.
As what they looked like in their life.
Yeah, for many years.
Ooh.
Or what you may perceive them as. What your mind wants to tell you. What.
Luckily, I've never seen anything in my home, but I have felt awkward in my basement before, but that's only after watching something that scares me. And then I just yell at it and I feel better. Like I'm in my basement so when I'm in my basement, my laundry room is in my basement. And my basement's old. My house was built in 1924.
That's pretty old.
I did pay to see if anybody had ever died there. No one has. But
that's been recorded.
I'm
just joking. Sorry, I'm not trying to creep you.
it didn't.
I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, it didn't do anything. But as I'm doing laundry, my laundry's right up against the south side of my house, and I've got all this space behind me, and I'll be pulling clothes out of the washer, and I just start getting goosebumps, and I go, knock it off. I just yell. I'm like, stop that. And I've said many times, Jonathan, cleanse this place.
How dare you?
Sorry. You have no power here. But then I feel better. Sorry. It might be just because I'm being assertive.
Yeah.
But I feel so much better.
But it's also it could be the dominance kind of. This is my house. Thing too. What are you doing here?
That's not only scientifically proven the self-fulfilling prophecy, but is also what my dad was so big on this, the power of the tongue. And it's but then also in the spiritual, I'm a spiritual person, with that intention that you put behind it, with that assertiveness that I have with it. And I'm like, stop it, knock it off. I don't like this. I don't want any part of it. With that assertiveness and that energy that's behind it, maybe I am pushing something away.
Well, we're in charge of this reality, and God made it that way on purpose. There's a reason that we have free will, and there's a reason that you can tell demons to leave you alone, just like you could tell God and his angels, I don't want you. I have no interest in you at all. It doesn't stop at just bad things. If you can't figure out why, I've been praying, not praying necessarily, I guess, but you can't figure out why you're not landing that job or why certain things are happening to you that you think are a big bout of bad misfortune. And then it's just all you have to do is ask your angels for help or guidance. They're wanting to help you. They're right there waiting, but they can't do anything until you say, I ask for I give you permission, please come and help me, or however you want to pray or do your affirmation. But the same rule applies for the good as it does for the bad, and I use both of those in quotes.
I wonder how much of have you heard of like electromagnetic fields causing people irritation, mental, whatever?
Sure.
And it could be you have an old house. I'm not saying your wiring is from the 20s because that'd probably be bad.
Not all of it.
But yeah, there, houses from the 50s and stuff, they had different coating on the wires that may not.
They didn't have wires. They had tubes and rods.
That. So I'm saying how much of these wires that aren't.
Like now that you mentioned that, there's a home on Lafayette. Jonathan lives in my neighborhood. It's a few 100 feet from you. I was working on that house with my brother back when I was trying to work 8 jobs at the same time. And even my brother Scott, who comes, he has the same kind of mindset as me, like, meh. But when he would run up the stairs, he would always feel eerie. And I remember being at that home one night. I had to go over there and remove a bunch of stuff because they were carpeting shit. And I was like, I am terrified to walk in this house. I've never been scared to come in this house before. And this is before anybody told me the weird shit that happened at this house. Which my friend Tyler, who we called up that one night, he actually lived in that house. And told me some weird stories that happened with that shit. So that's a very old house too. And come to find out, with my brother Scott running up these stairs, he busted the wall out and found some electrical wires that just weren't properly sealed. Like they were just twisted. They weren't capped.
They weren't like insulated properly, or
right?
whatever.
They weren't insulated properly. Yeah. So it's like, is it? And then I remember this lady, Carla Froelich, told me one night because I was talking about how uneasy I was at that house, and this is a house full of windows, and she was like, "Well, spirits live in water, reflections, and electricity," and I'm like, "You bitch!" I'm like, this is a house full of windows, even in the basement, full of windows.
Yeah,
like giant windows, and I'm like,
so it's just like bouncing. I'm just bouncing around.
Yeah, and I'm just
there.
downstairs, just like collecting this stuff one night, like late at night, just terrified, like I don't like this, like just yelling the whole time, like going, no, you can't get me, but just terrified the entire fucking time, like.
Yeah, I think. I don't know, basements, like every time I've run, even as an adult, not every time, but most of the time when I'm running up the stairs.
Even this basement?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyone's stairs. Something's about to grab my ankle all the time.
I had dreams about that.
Thank you, horror movies from the 1980s.
I had dreams about like lions pulling me down and telling, like, I remember having these dreams about out-of-body experiences where I got pulled down by these 2 demons, and one of them was a lion. And I remember laying down, hands covering my eyes, and them telling, like, look at me. And I was like, I'm not going to. But I was out of my body watching myself yell at these demons, saying, no, I won't look at you.
Yeah.
Nah.
That's just weird, like the electromagnetic fields, like old wiring and stuff. They call it like, I think it was on one, I was watching a ghost show. So a lot of the information I have is from TV. It's not like I'm doing. You
should have set up your infrared stuff down here tonight.
I could have
recorded it. I meant to actually tell you that, but we didn't.
They had something called the fear cage. It was like an old building, and everybody always felt weird. And it's like an old electrical box and all this old wiring running up. It's right above your head. It's at head level in the basement. You know what I mean? It's right at your brain. And I just wonder how much of that, like EMF fields, affected these people in this, just like bouncing off that the disco ball you have up, but they were the ones being deflected because of this field of fear that they just were more susceptible than other people.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that, particularly with demonic spirits. Like going back to the Ouija board thing, they'll only go after the weakest person in the group.
Yeah.
The one that they know is going to be scared. Or that they can have some sort of influence on.
My dad had they were from Yugoslavia, and very old stories and old ghost stories and of witches and vampires and demons and all that stuff. But they were also very religious, old school Roman Catholics, but still would experience spiritual things or hauntings or stories of people visiting on this day. But when they talked to somebody from towns over weeks later, said that, oh no, that person was at my house too that very evening.
And it wasn't possible.
No, there's a lot of folklore tales from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that the Irish and the Scots have the monopoly on fairies and witches and stuff. And
that's where they started.
It's just not true, especially vampires.
Yeah. But my dad had told me a story. I don't think I ever shared this with anybody on the show, or definitely you guys. But my mom and dad were staying at a loved one's house that was passing away. And both my parents saw this. So that's what makes me kind of like, holy shit. But they were about to get into bed. Dad's on the foot of the bed, taking his socks off, whatever. The lady that was dying came into bed with them and kind of disappeared. But she was still alive in the other room, like dying. Like she was going to die. But they saw her come into bed with them. But it wasn't her, obviously. It was like
her spirit,
like
her
maybe
energy.
Like you said, maybe that
well, there's
the
a word for
imprint.
it.
Go ahead.
Astral projection. So it's your soul, your astral body that leaves your body. So when you go to bed at night, or when you go into deep meditation, your soul actually can and does leave your body, but it is connected by a silver cord from your heart chakra right here in the middle of your chest. So your soul might go off anywhere, go around the world, doesn't matter, go up into the universe. But what brings you back is that silver cord. Brings you right back. It's how you find your body. When you die, that cord is severed and your spirit just goes. So the point of astral projection is taking your astral body. People consciously do this too, by the way. They send their body out, or their spirit out somewhere. Whether some people do it just in a room. They'll be in a room with a bunch of people, and they'll all be meditating, and they'll purposefully send their souls out of their body, and they'll look at themselves, or they'll look at the people around them. Or, send them down to the neighbor's house. People do some pretty interesting things.
That was something I really
I wonder
believed
if she
in
did
when
that
I was younger.
knowing
that's
that she
exactly
was
what it
dying,
was.
and
Yeah.
she was like, it was like she was doing it just because it was natural.
Like, I love
Yeah.
you guys.
I love you too, man.
Goodbye.
Oh no,
No.
don't leave.
No, you're the woman
Yeah,
with your parents.
she already made peace.
She was just
and-
like
yeah.
saying, like, I love you guys. This is my spirit's
Yeah.
last moment with you.
But there's a lot of weird stories
Like-
like that where my family comes from.
So, but as a child, I remember before I knew what it was, I believed in astral projection. And even before, I remember very specifically many dreams of me being chased by the hordes of hell. And I believe I've talked about this, or what I assume to be the hordes of hell.
Yeah.
Like, just being chased. And I remember I've talked about this on the show before because of my exploding head syndrome, which is a real thing. And hearing like this, but would wake me up out of my sleep. But it would a lot of times happen as in my dream, I'm coming right back into my body. And I'd hear this big bang, like a dumpster door just slamming. And just
you think that's your
like I would
soul
hop
coming
back
back?
up. And that's a possibility.
Could be.
I'm not saying it's not. But back like how you said both your parents saw the same thing, saw this lady come into the bed with them. I remember I've only had one shared experience where I saw the same thing as somebody else that in quotations wasn't there. My whole household one night. My parents were gone. My parents were divorced at this time, but my dad was gone. It was me and my 4 siblings with this one babysitter. and we were all fighting, like crazy fighting. Like it was insane how hard we were all going at each other, and the babysitter just had no control over us. And I remember, I've talked about it on the show before, but just with you here, I don't think I've ever told you this. So standing at the front door, when you walk into this home in particular, if you stayed forward, there's 2 steps, a landing, and then you can go upstairs, and there's a window right there. And my sister and I saw these 3 shadows that remind me a lot of, actually, if you think of, I forgot the 2 imps from Hercules' names.
Pain and Panic.
Pain and Panic.
I couldn't remember.
It reminded me a lot of the chubby one. Panic, I think. 3 of them, and they were just like dancing. You could see their shadows, just like dancing, like they were celebrating all of us fight. And my sister, and like we knew what the trees looked like, what the light from the garage.
I remember you telling me this.
Coming in, we knew what those looked like, and this was like definitive. Like there's 3 creatures up there. And like I remember being terrified. And my dad talking about seeing 3 creatures before too, like before, and this was like after we discussed this amongst each other, my sister and I think I asked my brother, like, hey, do you see that? And he's like, what? Like he didn't see it. My sister and I saw it. But my sister and I have been closer than me and any of my siblings growing up. So maybe that was a thing too.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was freaky.
Yeah, there was a weird story that my wife worked with somebody that had their daughter being, I guess, haunted. Because maybe I'm wrong, but items can be haunted, people can be haunted. So it doesn't matter where you live. You know what I mean? Your house can be haunted, you can move and you'll be okay. Or you can be haunted and it doesn't matter.
It'll follow you.
Yeah. But this girl was experiencing this man coming from her closet, and it wasn't like a dark figure. He was like burned black, like blackened. And I guess a while back on the property that they lived on, a structure fire happened, and this person had burned to death there. Maybe he was coming to where he thought was home and unknowingly bothering this young girl. And I kind of wanted to ask you, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but they had a glass orb, and they did some type of, not a prayer, but some type of session to
a seance,
I guess, and to like take his energy and trap it in this ball. And it filled with smoke, and it was like,
you can verify this?
I'm just saying what I heard, what was like third hand. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was a
curious.
parlor.
I mean, from just your story.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask.
It sounds
if
like that psychic imprint, actually.
Well, I wanted to ask if that's something that you've ever even heard of.
I've never trapped a ghost like Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Okay. So
but
it could be.
It sounds originally like the psychic imprint where something happened and somebody was walking.
Well, yeah.
Well, it could be dead and still there, and in that case, I
know.
would try to get him to go toward the light. You may not even know that he's dead.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was a parlor trick or something, or if it was legitimate.
Well, it could be.
No
I
idea.
mean, I don't discount anything that anybody is. I've never done that before.
I was just wondering if you've ever even heard of that.
No, I've never heard of trapping
Ghostbusters.
Or just maybe
not in objects.
Maybe the energy of it or something, like the imprint of it, and it's like, okay, now it's here, you're going somewhere else. Maybe, I don't know. Or it could have been something to help the family just get over it and just get back to normal life.
Could be.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I've never trapped anything inside of an object.
I didn't know if that was even a thing or possible. Or
and most of the time, crystals are used to repel.
Yeah, just
they cleanse. They give off an energy, especially when you cleanse them naturally, normally and naturally, that cleans out negative energy or pushes it away. So not so much like keeping it inside of it.
Okay. Like you were saying, the disco ball.
Sure.
Instead of
amethyst is really good
sponge.
for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
I know there's so much stuff you could talk about with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about astrology and the tarot and then spirituality and then ghosts.
However, you took some information from him before. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure.
All right.
Let's talk about this. What is the information you took from him, and what are you using it for?
So I had to get his birth date, time that he was born, and where he was born to see where all of the stars and planets were at the time of his birth.
Nice.
And what does that do?
So it puts it into astrologers put it into a pie chart that's broken up into 12 slices. And each one of the slices represents something, whether it's who we are, our possessions, how we communicate, our families, how we seek pleasure, marriage, health, spirituality, career. All that stuff is each one of those 12 slices. And then each one of those 12 slices is ruled by a zodiac sign from the time we were born. And then in them are planets, so where the planet was in that sign at the time that we were born. And then we can see how we view each of those slices because of the planets and the stars that rule them. And then, of course, when you deep dive into astrology, you look at their aspect to one another. Are they opposing one another? Do they work in harmony with each other? So we call that a trine. Do they square each other, which means they work opposing? Not in opposition, I shouldn't say that, but the energy isn't as harmonious in that way. So lots of stuff to look at when you look at an astrology wheel.
It looks like a compass.
Yeah.
And then
with hieroglyphics on it.
And and runes, kind of like etchings of like runes or symbols, and almost looks like to me almost where you were like, it looks like squares within a circle that's within another circle, and where those squares converge is like
a lot of lines.
More, I don't know, I guess you can explain it better. I could see like 3 lines intersecting at a point, and that point's highlighted, and it explains something like
Which
this.
Which one are you pointing at?
Up here.
Oh, these are the aspects. So these are what I was talking about with trines,
those
sextiles,
are triangles.
Conjuncts. There are triangles in there,
Okay.
And that the triangle represents a trine. So it says that between these 3 points, you have harmony between these 3 houses.
Okay.
So those types of things should flow really well for you.
Cool.
So the first thing that I always look at whenever I look at a chart is somebody's rising sign. So it's the sign that's on the far left of the chart. It's between the first and second house. It rests right there. And I like to see who rules it. And in this case, Aries rules it. So the ascendant is what was on the horizon. It was the sign that was on the eastern horizon the moment you were born, which we know is where the sun comes up. So it's our first glimpse into the world. So this is how people see us, is by our ascendant. And the ascendant, in this case, is ruled by Aries. So people see John as this very fiery, passionate go-getter that really, they probably think, wow, this guy starts off great. I mean, he's got great energy. But the thing about the Aries energy is it starts off really strong, but it tapers down. So they see him as someone that starts a project probably with all this passion, and then it starts to die down, and he's got to figure out how's he going to pick that back up again. Yeah. So whether it's a project, a relationship, anything about, and remember, this is people's perception of you. So this is just what people notice about you. They see you as a strong individual, someone that's fiery and passionate about what they want, but maybe doesn't stick to it 100%. Like you'll taper off, and then you've got to find a way to reignite the fire again. Like, oh man, I was reading that book and it was fantastic, but I got to page 50 out of 520 and decided maybe I'll pick that up a little bit later.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that's just the ascendant, and then the other thing you look at, of course, is the sun sign. The sun sign represents our ego. It represents what we're attaining to be. Obviously, the source of life for everything exists because of the sun, which is why it's so important. And your sun sign, as most of all of us know, is about our zodiac sign. It just coincides with our birthday. So, of course, this makes you a Pisces because you were born on February 27th. So, because you're a Pisces, it actually shows that you are a very spiritual person on the inside. Like, you question a lot of things. You have a lot of theories. You don't just throw it to the wind. You don't just say, oh, no, I can't believe in any of that. The Pisces energy is very spiritual. It's very psychic. It can also be very emotional. It also has an addictive personality. So it can get addicted to a lot of things. And, of course, you say good or bad, depending, but because of that addictive personality, you'll find a lot of Pisceans that are addicted to drugs or alcohol, and that's the worst side of it. The flip side of it is maybe getting addicted to stories or a job or just it's something that you always go back to because that's what makes you feel connected to something. Pisceans are so sensitive because they're so psychic, and they can be so emotional, or they cut that emotion off sometimes because it's just too overwhelming, that they don't feel like they belong in this world. They feel like they belong somewhere else. So they're always thinking about that other adventure, or why is it that I feel like I don't fit in? But on the flip side, because they're fish, there's a famous saying about Pisceans, is that they can swim in any pond, which means they can get along with anybody.
Yeah.
They can get along with any group of people. They can hop into the popular pond, the reject pond, and have a conversation with anybody, because they Pisceans naturally know a lot about a lot of things because they're very curious individuals. So they're always trying to figure out, what's going on? How does this work? They ask a lot of questions and they learn a lot of things.
It's like a curse sometimes.
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is.
Are you a Pisces as well?
I am a Pisces. That's why I know so much about it.
I was going to say.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome.
And so, interestingly enough, then we look at the moon, and the moon is important because when you look at all the rest of these planets on here, they're not moving very fast. Mercury is moving the fastest, right, because it's the closest to the sun. But the further you go out, when you get to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, I mean, they're so far out, and it takes them so long to make their revolution around the sun. But the moon, however, is around us. So it's just constantly going around and round and round and round, right? Every 24 hours. So you got to get the time to pinpoint where the moon was, which is why I needed you to call your mother at 9:30 at night and ask her, Mom, what time was I born?
And she was like, Saturday, 8 a.m. I was like, okay, thanks.
So the moon tells us who we are on the inside. It tells us our soul. So where the sun sign is talking about our ego, what it is that we're striving to be, the moon represents who we are on the inside. It represents our soul and where our passion comes from. And coincidentally, your moon is also in Aries. So everything that I said about the Aries sign, so being very fiery, very passionate, but burning out, like starting off really strong, but not necessarily completing, to the point of you feeling satisfied, is a big thing for that. It's also in your first house. The first house represents ourselves. So, who we are on the inside. So, I mean, it's great because it says that you're very strong, you're very dedicated, you're also very strong-willed and headstrong. I mean, when you think of an Aries, it's a ram, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So it's got the horns and it's ready for battle and it's going to charge, clear straight in. The thing is, you got to be careful with it because unlike a Capricorn, which is also, a type of ram, the Aries energy, it doesn't just focus on one thing, and that's why it burns out. Because then it thinks, oh, well, I can take on this and that, and you just kind of keep going and going, and pretty soon that fire engulfs everything around you, and that's why you burn out. And then you've got to either you start over on something new, or you put some stuff on the back burner, and maybe you don't get back to it for a long time. So that's that Aries energy that's in your first house.
Okay. Your
second house is ruled by Taurus, which is actually pretty interesting because that's the house that usually you always find it in. Taurus energy, especially in the second house, really, it tries to really hold on to possessions and money. It tries to be very secure, very careful with it. It doesn't want to go too crazy. However, the Taurus energy also likes to show off things that they own. They like to say, this is what I have. Look at the nice things that I am able to procure because I work hard for it. So not only are you stable with money, because the Taurus energy is very stubborn. So, I mean, it's only going to spend money where it thinks it's going to make it, or where it thinks that, there's going to be some sort of return investment. It's not just freeloading. It would never do that. So when in terms of your second house, where you have this Taurus energy in there that's saying, hey, I'm going to be careful about how I spend my money, but the way that I spend it, it's not just for me. I'm going to be, showing this off a little bit or doing something with it.
Okay.
So I was like looking at that house too to see how people spend their money. Fourth house, I'm going to skip to that one, is about family, and it's ruled by Cancer. So the Cancer is the mother of the zodiac. So because it's in there, you take a very emotional cling to your family.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's like not only are you the protector, but you're also like emotionally invested into it. This would be like someone who is just like amazed that you have this thing, that it's a beautiful thing and you appreciate it in ways that other signs might take it for granted or not try to care for it as much. You have to remember that Cancer is a crab, and a crab has a shell, right? So it's like very much like, this is mine and I'm taking care of this. So family is extremely important to you. It's the first thing that you put at the front of your mind, and it's the one thing that you're going to protect over anything else because of your place in it. So it's a really beautiful thing to have in there. Your seventh house of marriage and partnerships, you've got a lot going on in there. It's ruled by Libra, which is fantastic because that Libra energy says you want balance. You don't see either one of you or your partner, in this case your wife, as someone having more power than the other. You want both of you to be equal contributors. And there's a few reasons for that. You have Mars energy in there, which means there can be a lot of struggle and a lot of turmoil as far as like Mars is the god of war. So it's like,
oh no.
Yeah. So it's like, well, when I want something my way, I want it my way.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, there can be some pretty bitter disagreements. But you also have Saturn in there, and the Saturn kind of tempers it down because Saturn is the planet of responsibility. So even when you feel like, no, I'm going to make a point, that Saturn energy says, hey, behave. Calm down.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other one you got in there is Pluto, which is, you got another one in there too. Yeah, you got 4 planets in there. 4 planets in your partnership and marriage house. So also you're always thinking that Pluto energy, and I like it because it's working with the Pisces energy. You try to come up with different ways of making your relationship new. The Pluto energy is regenerative. So it's like you'll be going along on some way, and then you'll end it so you can try something else. So you can bring something new to the table.
Okay.
Whether that's sexual, physical, going on, going on a trip, going on a vacation, or something spontaneously, or a new way that you want to try something new with your wife, but you don't want, for you, things can't always stay the same. They can't be the same every single day.
Yeah.
So as long as there's change, you're happy.
Yeah.
You also have in there Jupiter and okay. So Jupiter is in Scorpio in this house because you're 10 degrees going into Scorpio. Scorpio is a very, very sexual sign. It's very sexy. The fact that you have Jupiter in there means Jupiter is the king of the planets, right? It's the biggest one. So when we see Jupiter in any of these slices of the pie, we tend to think that this is where you want things to continue to grow, like you want to be in charge. So you bring this Jupiter energy and this sexual energy in there as well, and it also means that sex is very important to you. It makes you feel secure. It makes you feel, yeah, but in this case, it makes you feel wanted and it makes you feel in charge.
Okay.
So you got the Saturn energy in there working for you with the Scorpio. You also have, like I said, the Mars, the Saturn, the Pluto. So the I need my way. And then the Saturn saying, no, calm down a little bit because, you know, you do have that Libra in there. So even though you let the Libra work, when you don't get your way, it's not like you're necessarily going, okay, no problem. You're kind of like, yeah, fine, whatever. I won't buy that thing or I won't do that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
What's next?
Yeah. Let's move along. I'm just going to let you, quote unquote, win for the sake of argument.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's when I seen, I'm guessing where you said there was a lot happening.
Right here?
Yeah, that's where I see it in a lot of the lines converging. When I saw that, I looked at that and I was like, what's that?
Well, when you look at the two slices of the pie, the bottom half down here, so the first house through the sixth house, they deal with like our everyday lives. So they deal with money, communication, family, how we enjoy ourselves getting by every single day. But when you start looking from the 7th to the 12th house, you're starting to think about the higher things. So it's our spirituality or it's our partnerships and or our job and how we ourselves contribute to the grand design or to the greater picture. And you have a lot of planets that are in the top part. So you live more in a lifestyle of saying, how can what I do make a difference in the grand scheme of things? What is my legacy? What am I leaving?
Is it kind of like a dreamer type thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially with that Pisces energy there. I mean, that's really strong. Your 10th house of career, I mean, you have Venus in there. So it has to be something that you love to do.
Yeah.
And the Capricorn energy says that, hey, when it comes to doing the thing that you want to do to make a living, you're going to focus on it and you're going to focus on it 100%, but you got to love doing it. And as long as you love doing it, you're going to do fine and you're going to be extremely successful.
Well, that's good. I'm still looking, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Because you got to, the key word is you got to love it.
Yeah.
It'll be something that you've thought about for years and years and years. This is nothing. It's something you've always wanted to do. And once you get into that niche, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I've always said to my friends and my family, like I love talking to people and I love talking and getting information. Mm-hmm. I love research.
Well, your third house of communication is ruled by Gemini, and Gemini is the smartest. I don't want to be offensive to any other zodiac sign here in the thing, but it is a talker, and it likes to have intellectual conversation.
Yeah.
And because your third house is ruled by that sign, that just means what stimulates you is intellectual conversation. You know, and it's not necessarily that you have to lead. That Gemini energy says, I don't got to lead this whole thing. You can speak too, and we'll speak on a subject that you're learning about, and then also that you can talk about that you know. So that goes both ways. That's why there's two.
Because earlier when you were talking, I'm like, you could just talk, and I'll just sit here and just. This is easy. I could do this all day.
Well, I've noticed that about you with conversations we've had with other people, particularly at work. You will step back and listen.
Yeah.
And then you'll come in and comment later on.
Kind of sniper it.
With, for instance, if there's 4 or 3 of us having a conversation and I'm a part of it, you'll then talk to me later about specific parts, but you'll also talk about the part of the conversations you talked with the other person.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah.
And just, I've enjoyed, I mean, like, I actually envision every time I'm coming back to your area, and this is silly as shit.
Maybe not.
In the movie, The Aristocats, at the very end of the movie, there's these 2 dogs that are walking up to the house, and they're like, "Oh, here they come!" And I always envision myself as those dogs, like one of the dogs that's just coming up, like, "Hey, here comes a good time. We're about to talk about some shit. Like some of it's funny,
Yeah.
and some of it's just
Silly.
and then some of it's also just talking about like one of the dogs is like." We got some dad in you right there. Like these guys are cute, but this one's an asshole. And then the other one's just like Did I ever tell you about my grandpappy? I don't know. For some reason, whenever I'm walking back there, I envision myself as both of those dogs coming to you, because it's like,
yeah,
either I'm gonna talk or he's gonna talk. But
Yeah,
we're
talking.
We're gonna have a good time. Like, and that's what I was telling you coming over here. Like, for instance, with this podcast, how when you first presented it to me, I said to you, why is anybody going to want to listen to this? I'm like, I enjoy our conversations.
Yeah.
And I know people around us enjoy them too, just because they laugh, they talk with us,
yeah,
they have a good time. So it's like, I like talking to you.
I feel like
it's all a good time.
If someone's willing to use energy to say words, it's almost worth just listen for a little bit.
I disagree with that.
Let them hang themselves on their own rope. But I'm also saying,
what's that one guy?
Sometimes you just have to let the person just say what they want to say, and don't take it like you were saying, like deflect the stuff that you don't want to take in, and take in the good stuff. Like in work, I got trained by who knows how many people, 10, 15, 20 people. And I took the best things from each piece and made my own thing. I didn't take the bad things from this person and the bad things from that person. I'm like, well, that's not going to work, so I'm not going to do that. Just like how I vicariously lived through my older siblings. Well, I'm not going to do that. I know I'm never going to do this. It's kind of like the same thing.
That's how I've based my marriage off of. My parents' marriage. I'm like, oh, you gave me the template,
absolutely
what not to do.
That's how you learn. You learn so much more. I'm learning this more now as I'm getting older, because the failures and the losses are a little bit more expensive or more time consuming, I guess you could say. So it's like you learn a lot from those little bits of like losses and failures compared to just winning all the time and never knowing that. Like who knows how you would be if you always won and was always on top? That would be lonely, I think.
Well, in The Last Jedi, Yoda told Luke that failure is a Jedi's greatest teacher.
There it is.
Speaking of which, have you guys watched the most recent episode of The Mandalorian?
No, don't say anything.
I haven't. I've only watched like the first 2 or maybe 3, 4 at the most episodes.
Of the whole show.
The whole series. Yeah, I was going to say, because there's only 4.
Actually, no, I'm
came out
I'm at the very end of the first season when
they did a really good job with it. I
liked it.
I enjoy Westerns anyway.
I don't even think you need to.
But especially if you make it Star Wars and
That's
a Mandalorian,
true, yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Yep.
You don't even need to know about the Star Wars world. But you can just fall into it and it's good.
Yeah,
but this is the thing too, for me, my favorite game of all time, Borderlands. I love that series. But what was it was the first it was the first game I ever played that was a FPS RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing it and I'm like, well, I want to do these side quests, but then I come to the boss and I'm just like, well, you're bullshit. But anyway, that's what the Mandalorian is. It's like, well, we have a quest for you. It's like, well, I already have a quest.
Yeah.
but every episode is a new quest.
Yeah.
So and it reminds me of when I play games like that, which I mean I really haven't done, other than actually the last game I played like that was the Alien, the Xenomorph game. I don't even remember what it's called, but I recommend everybody play.
It's like the horror survival game.
Yeah. You could do side quests and you don't level up per se, but you gain more skills. Like you learn how to build a pipe bomb. You learn how to make a noise distraction so you can call the Xenomorph way far away from you or to attack somebody else. Like,
yeah, deferring the energy to somewhere else just so you can get away and survive a little bit longer and get more scared.
So I don't know. The Mandalorian, like I wouldn't say it speaks to me, but I've really enjoyed it. And not just because I enjoy Star Wars. I feel I am a big fan of Star Wars, but I feel even if I wasn't a fan of Star Wars, I'd still enjoy this show.
Yeah, for sure. But I wanted to, I guess, go back a little bit, but I I said this on the episode with my sister, the last episode, where I'm hanging out with my friends, we're smoking a little bit, drinking a little bit, and we're having a blast. And then the next day you just remember you had a lot of fun, but you don't remember those specific details that made it so fun. And I really wish I would have started this about 10 years ago, because there would have been a lot. I mean, there's going to be a lot happening in the future, God willing, or whoever's up there. But I'm thinking, let's catalog this and just talk shit, be silly, have the serious moments. Like this was a lot of fun for me, even though we had some laughs and stuff, but it was still like a serious undertone. That's just, it was a kind of lurking.
That's actually why I left the room.
Yeah. It was very cool.
Like I just wanted that to be between you guys. I didn't want to be a distraction.
Yeah. There was a lot that was very right on that as far as me.
And also at the same time, I get to listen to it later. So
yeah. It's kind of a surprise.
It's like I'm going to be a part of it, but at the same time, I still, in this moment, I wanted it to be between you guys. Like I was out there just petting your cat, having a blast.
I thought you were doing something sexual. I heard it meowing. But what you said as far as starting with a lot of passion and kind of fizzling out and putting it on the back burner, coming back to it, that happened. That's been happening my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've never.
Well, and the point about these readings, by the way, is obviously acknowledgement is the first way toward a cure. So when you realize that that's the energy that you're born into, you don't have a choice. You have to master it. You have to understand the behavior and then get on it and change it. Say, no, I'm not going to do this.
So I should go into the field of like bar rescue and just go in there and be like, you guys can do it, bam, bam, and then just disappear.
Yes.
Let them deal with the rest.
So write this down, this timestamp, because you might want to take this out. Because
okay, I'm not going to because you said that, but go ahead.
But you might.
Nah.
Have you been feeling that way about this podcast recently?
Oh yeah, I feel about it.
Have you been feeling about that since the beginning? Because only recently have I really been feeling that from you.
Ever since I bought the first piece of equipment.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I didn't pick up on that before, but ever since we haven't been able to meet up as often.
There's a lot. I mean, holidays, family visiting, and my energy's kind of like partitioned out into a lot of spaces.
So that's possibly what it is too. And like I jokingly, because I'm an asshole, I joke around all the time. I can't help myself. I was like, yeah, maybe if it ends at 32 episodes, then it just ends. And I was totally joking. But then like there's been a couple of times I've joked with you that I've had to tell you like, hey, I'm just messing. Like I'm just joking around. Like, yeah. And so I was like,
there's the opposite of that. There's people that I know are joking and they're like, it's a joke. I'm like, dude, anything you say, I'm not taking serious. Like, but it's,
But like, even that time I was like, I hope he didn't think I was serious.
No.
Like, I enjoyed doing this.
No, it's, to me, I love having you on. I love having you as like the other part.
Yeah,
like whatever. The dude.
I should wear a bathrobe over here.
Do it as long as you wear something to cover your.
You can't see.
Yeah, there's cracks. There's cracks in the table I could see, but
there's a camera.
I'm not saying this in any type of mean way or anything. Like I love talking to so many people and anybody that's willing to share something that I could learn from or whatever. But I said this to my wife and she was like, you're stupid. But I was like, it would be so cool to be a vampire and just never die and having having this wife for 70 years and this life for 100 years. And then everybody in that, I'm not saying that would be cool for people to just die off and have replaced, but it's just like I guess the consuming portion of me as far as knowledge and just people.
Yeah. Could you imagine though, if you were just one of those people who just knew everything? So you're like, bah, I've been alive 2,000 years. I'm not changing for shit.
Yeah. You can't have a podcast when you're 7,500 years old.
Well, and also who says that the pursuit of knowledge ends at death?
Yeah.
Especially if you believe in reincarnation.
I hope it starts at death, honestly.
Right. And you believe that throughout your lives, you're learning lots and lots of things. And either for yourself as for your soul's development, or are you sending it back into the universe? Are you sending it back to the Godhead? And just being like a cog in a wheel, that's just going through all these experiences, learning all this stuff.
But I also don't like that feeling either.
Which one?
As far as just being a piece. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like our job is kind of like that. We're all just cogs on a big sprocket that's turning a chain that's moving this.
That's really what everybody ends up being.
Yeah, but I'm saying as far as like the job, like I know that's part of our life, but it's like the job. It's like it doesn't mean anything.
I actually thought of that today.
It's weird
about how I was walking through and how we all, I feel at least, we all think we're special in one way or the other.
I mean, we kind of are.
We are.
Yeah. We're all unique.
We're all unique and special to someone, but to the world, are we? And I remember thinking, I was like, everybody in this plant could die right now, myself included, and it would not matter to the entirety of the world.
True.
It would matter to the people in our lives. But world keeps spinning.
Yeah.
And nothing would happen other than they'd be like, we got to fill 800 spots.
The earth will turn around that sun and it'll be up tomorrow.
And our job would do it in under a week.
I explained to new people, I'm like, The Walking Dead when they're in the prison and all those zombies are just shaking that fence. That's somebody waiting to take your spot when you die.
Right.
They're just ready to come in here. But
at a lower wage.
yeah, definitely. I wrote this down. I don't know if it means anything to you, but my mom had a miscarriage before me, and then so I would be considered a rainbow child. They call that, right? Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much more babying I got compared to other siblings because she was so happy that I didn't miscarry or whatnot.
I feel you'd have to talk with her about that.
I know, but like, does that have anything? You know what I mean? Is that? I know we were saying earlier about C-section versus vaginal birth. You know what I mean? Does that really matter when it comes? You know what I mean? You're saying,
can see that they would do that, but that's a choice your mother would make.
Yeah, I'm saying as far as like you come in at this time, and then it's mathematically the equation is there automatically as soon as you draw your first breath. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what happened before you or after you.
Not necessarily, no. Yeah. Especially because it depends upon the point in which the soul decides to come into the womb. It doesn't happen while you're just a bunch of clump of cells.
Yeah.
So what
I feel that there's like another portion of me or something like that I've.
You feel like a piece of your soul was in that first miscarriage?
I don't know. Not to sound like weird about it, but it's like we all have that voice in our head that's very loud that is always talking to us. Like, why'd you do that? Do
you feel like you're just living in the shadow of a child that was never born?
No, I want to say,
I rose above it.
I'm way better than that. No, I want to say it's like there's something that I'm not getting. Like there's a piece missing or something that I'm just waiting for that aha moment in my life to where all these roads just meet into this one and I just fucking drive right through it. You know what I mean?
I think that's, but I think that's within all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helps all of us drive towards.
Maybe that's just in my mind, knowing that makes me think that's like my perception of it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I should talk to my mom about it.
Does it make you feel lucky that you're here?
For sure, yeah.
Like
even though it was not my choice where I was born and who I was born from and my religion growing up and
spiritually, that's not true.
Oh, okay.
In spiritual circles, I'm not saying that for you. I'm just saying there's obviously a spiritual line of thinking that says that you did choose your parents and you did choose when you were going to incarnate. And you did choose if I don't know how old your sibling would have been, but if they decided that they were going to not go through, with everything because it would set you up on a different path, because again, we look at everything through the lens of humanity, death, bad, that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
I mean, it's so primitive. I mean, there really are no absolutes. There's not really even good and evil if everything is neutral, because everything is just an experience. So, I mean, what we see and what we've perceived as human beings to be a tragedy, all of a sudden you can see a blessing. Like the plane that went down in Detroit back, what was it, in the early 80s or late 80s? I don't remember. But the plane crashed and everyone on it died except for this one little baby.
Wow.
So they called that baby a miracle child and heralded it. Never mind the 70 people that died. This baby lived. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like trying to find miracles in the
I got you.
in the chaos.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting too, that we picked who and when and what. I'd never really thought of that either. That's why I like talking to people. Yeah, that's interesting.
Different perspectives.
Well, you have the idea of reincarnation as far as like Hinduist one, where if you're a good person, then you go into a higher caste system. So you won't come back as a monkey or something unless you were really, really bad and you had a bunch of bad karma, then you're going to come back as a bug or, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And you don't really get a choice in that. Karma dictates it. But then there's a spiritual point of it, which is more new age than anything that was popularized, that when you die, you stay a human. You never become a bug or anything. You're always a human. You're always learning these things, but you choose when you want to incarnate. You choose your life path. You choose 7 exit points in which you could die, at 7 different times, all the way up until your last one, of course, and who you marry. You've already worked this out with your not your soulmate, but your significant other that you chose to incarnate with in this life. You knew you were going to meet and get married long before you ever did, which is why you have that feeling of knowing this person. I feel like I've known you forever. Well, it's because you did on the other side.
Do you feel that way with your wife?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because my wife believes her soulmate is her brother.
Well, soulmates are a different thing, and again,
yeah, and that's and I don't even take issue with that. Like,
as far as just their connection,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, and I always say this stuff this is the research I've done, what I think, and when souls left the Godhead, if we go back to that idea that I said about God being an ocean, and you take the little drips. Well, if you take the droplet and you were to split it in half, and one side is male and one is female, that's where you get the idea of soulmates. And sometimes, here on purely spiritual terms, your soulmate, in that sense, does not incarnate with you normally. And the reason is if I'm saying that the point of life is experience, like I said, whether it's for you, if that's what you want to believe, you're learning things on your soul's journey so you can reach nirvana or enlightenment, or it's going back to God, or maybe it's not going anywhere. But what are you learning when you're with someone that you agree with 110%? That every time you're together, it's beautiful and wonderful, and there's no conflict, no chaos, and no compromise because you guys are so connected. There wouldn't be. Yeah. So why would you incarnate together in that way? You wouldn't.
And that's, I mean, that you just bring that up. The, in quotation marks, relationship I had before I met my wife, we never argued. We never fought. We never had conversations where we made each other grow.
Exactly.
It was just all, and I wouldn't even say it was easygoing. It was just like, well, that bothers me, but I'm not going to talk with you about it because you're your own person. Whatever. Yeah. My wife has definitely made me grow.
Yeah, I'd say that about my wife as well. I think I learned more from her than any other person I've had a relationship in my life.
That should be.
Is this a number you're giving me? Is this your phone number?
No, just don't even open that.
Don't open? Okay. So I wrote down self-sacrifice, and it could have been, I think, because of the Rainbow Child thing that I talked about, that you said that possibly they chose to do that because they would deflect me in a way that possibly was a more negative, and that could hurt me or other people or just whatever.
Well, and just think about how different your life would have been had you had an older sibling.
Yeah. Well, it would have been another boy, which would have been cool, I guess, because I only have one brother and 7 sisters. So I'm like, bring it on. Lots of boobs. Where's all the dudes? No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, I always thought, oh, it'd been so cool to have this, because I had an older brother, but he was way older. You know, it's like 10 years. He has nothing to do, you know what I mean, and totally different ends of the spectrum as far as life goes.
Is that still?
Yes. Yeah, a lot more now than ever, because I don't really talk to him.
Oh.
But yeah, I was always like, oh, if I had a brother that was like 2 years older than me, we'd be so close and it would be so much fun. But I don't know that.
I don't know, because I have 4 brothers. Yeah.
I have 6.
All very close in age, and I'm closer to Jonathan than I am to any of my brothers. And I work with one of my brothers.
Yeah.
And I have I'm closer to my friends than I am with a lot of my brothers, but family isn't something that was really instilled with us. And I mean, the main thing that was instilled was listen to your parents, or we're going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was, that's your sister, or that's your brother, so I should just give up on, or not give up, but like forget all this shit that happened.
Right. It was that was
like that
was never my family.
Like as a young, I'm like, okay, when I was younger, okay, mom, okay. But no. Now that I'm older, I'm like, no, I'm not going to just, oh, you're my friend, so I'm just going to, all the shitty stuff you
Let
did.
you abuse me because you're family.
No. It's okay. I'm not enabling anybody. I don't want to be enabled if I have an issue or a problem. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't know what you want to call it. I've never really talked about this on the show, but I don't know if my brother's listening to the show. If he is, I love you, but there's been moments where it was like a close connection, kind of, but mainly not.
I think that's why that 4th house of family with that Cancer in there, like I said, it's very protective. And so I think it's very much trying to not be what you had or examples that you see around you. You're really wanting to kind of keep this one to yourself and nurture it in a way that you think is completely different than what you saw. Yeah,
I don't even want to air out any dirty laundry about our family problems, because that's a whole other podcast.
That's another show.
That's not even another show. That's like, all right, I need somebody to write this shit down and make a book out of it. But yeah, I don't. It's like as a young person, you hold grudges and you're just like, oh, I'll hate you forever, whatever. But as an adult, I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't have that square footage in my brain to hold on to this.
So I always remember my mother.
I'm not going
saying like, she's like, I don't care. She's, what am I trying to remember exactly what she said? She's like, I don't even think about it. Like if I hated this individual, or if I disliked this individual, that would be taking up more space than I'm willing to even give them. Like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember her actual words for it. Just remind me.
There was people in my family that were close that said stuff that they wished ill will on him, I guess you could say. And I was like, the best thing you could probably do is wish him a long life to reflect on this stuff and possibly change. Or if you're into it, have him struggle and think about it every day, and it eats him away. You know what I mean?
Isn't it interesting how talking about psychic phenomena brought us around to talking about our family?
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking about just now, actually.
Well, it's all in there. Well,
That's the reason I like doing it, to be honest with you. I like opening them up, the conversation. I always feel, especially with the tarot cards, that they're just a mirror. And certainly what I showed you, I mean, this is your life. So, I mean, it's a mirror of yourself that you're able to look at and go, do I do that? Am I like that? Man, I guess I am. Or you go, absolutely, yes, that's, oh man, I got to change that, since now I understand that that's just the circumstances I was born in. So I like using it as a guide or a path to say, hey, let's look at the influences around you, and whether they're family or yourself, your own, self-destructive tendencies, and what are you going to do to fix it, to get the outcome in life that you want?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel it's good to have people that are positive and smart and that can see these things and be like, no, yeah, you do this. Like, no, these 3 out of 4 people other than you are saying yes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Look, I'll tell you, I've given readings to some very stubborn people that tell me I'm wrong, and they call me up the next day or 3 days later and they say, no, I'm sorry, you're right. I just didn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Or it'll be something about a job, and they're like, no, that's not going to happen. And then they'll call me up and say, oh my God, I got the job. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Sometimes it's very, your ego gets in the way, and you don't want to admit, maybe certain things about yourself or about a loved one. And you're just kind of like, no, I mean, believe me, I get it. It's not, giving readings to people is not all lollipops and raindrops.
Yeah. It's almost like you were saying about ego, like people that do hallucinogens and they get that ego death and they see like everything that they've thought of up until that point changes, and everything after that will be different because they got whittled down back to a stick figure of ego, and now it's like, okay, I don't have the shit to hang on to. I don't have to project something to make somebody think that I'm not this or I am this or whatever. Like, that's one thing I think, to me, is that if you know in yourself that you're not this, that should be enough. You shouldn't have to like, oh, well, check this out, I'm not this or I am that. You know what I mean?
I used to get that a lot. When I first got back involved in theater, everybody thought I had this huge ego about myself. Like, they just thought I was walking in going, I'm the shit, and I know it. And yeah, see, even him. But honestly, I was in there going like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I'm terrified of everybody.
Yeah.
Just all the time. And I remember the first time I heard about it, like, this one guy was like, I did a show, and he goes, well, I don't mean to stoke your ego any more than it already is, but you did a really great job in that show. And I'm like, I just remember like gasping a little bit, going like, that's so sweet that you would say that first part, but that second part's complete bullshit. Like,
that's in your head. But I
didn't think I did any of it. I don't ever think I'm good enough for any of this that I'm doing community theater. Like, I'm trying my best and thinking I'm failing all the time. And everybody just thinks I have this huge ego about myself back then. I don't know what people think now, but I'm just like, that's not who I am.
You were in that basement folding laundry, scared to death, yelling at the windows.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you guys say? We've been at it for 2 hours here. I think we hit a lot of stuff.
Put a bow on it.
We could.
Jonathan, tell us a joke.
Well, going back to the Starbucks in the church, there's one that I hate puns. I absolutely hate them.
I don't know why they're so good.
I know you do, and that's why I'm going to tell you this one that I know that does make me chuckle. How does Moses? Oh, wait a minute. How does Moses like his coffee?
You bruise it.
Yes, he bruise it.
I think you have to emphasize the he part.
He bruised it. I just emphasized the bruise part.
You knew that was coming. You're like, he
was excited for that one. I don't know if you heard it or not.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because they had it.
It still made me laugh.
At a church I went to years ago.
Very happy.
But I was
funny.
just like, oh God.
Like both of us are still smiling.
Sometimes the
Like,
honest,
I'm very
lame
happy.
jokes are the best
I
ones.
know.
Oh, that we're
God,
all.
I just think they're awful.
He's
and
about to be a dad. We're all dads here, so they're all great.
they
Nice.
scratch my brain.
Well, congratulations on about to be a dad.
They're trying.
Oh, well,
Like it's gonna happen.
he's like, I'm still doing this.
Yeah,
That's
you
not
know.
it.
I mean, like about to be as I'm speaking
gotcha.
that into existence. Like he's about to be a dad.
Yep, it's
gonna
called
be
the law of
He's
attraction.
going to be a cool ass kid.
You could do a whole,
Yeah, he is.
a whole.
He's gonna have
podcast
Uncle
on-
Michael
on
down the
different
street.
laws.
He,
Teach him how to bash nerds while he's learning how to be a nerd. Well, and I'd be the one teaching him how to be a nerd. He's Jonathan's the one teaching him how to bash.
Yeah,
bash.
with a lightsaber.
Yeah, with a lightsaber of knowledge.
And at this point in our future, it might be a real lightsaber where you could actually.
Did you see the dude
Yeah.
who made the real
I did.
lightsaber, by the way?
I'm
It's
scared.
awesome. It's awesome.
I'm going to, take my money.
Shut up and take my money.
Oh, you need a lighter?
Yeah.
It's like my face.
Yeah, it's awesome. You should
Hey,
Google
baby, you want to kill all humans?
it. That's the name of this podcast. Google the lightsaber.
Well, Jonathan, thanks, man. Thanks for coming out here and thanks for the reading. That was really cool.
Yeah, thanks a
you're
lot.
welcome.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Yeah. Anybody want to plug anything now?
Kroger. No, he doesn't have
No,
any-
I don't want to talk about that.
No. But yeah, thanks for everybody. Thanks to everybody for listening. And yeah, hopefully we do another 30 next year or 33. 33.
Next year. This isn't our last show.
Probably not for the year.
Wow.
Maybe one or two more.
4 more.
I like that number. I was thinking 50 a year, but that was oof.
We
You don't get
started.
2 weeks off a year.
We
We started late.
we hit this pretty hard.
Anyway.
Yeah. Let's do it. Thanks everybody. It's just really low and you can't hear yourself.